Good morning. Good to have you with us today. I welcome each of you here. Let's have, and I call this meeting to order. Let's have our roll call, please. Thank you. And at this time, we will stand, and Reverend Hammond will have the invocation of Mr. James to pledge.
Precious God, our Father, how great thou art and how blessed we are because of your greatness. Thank you for another beautiful day and for the many, many blessings of life. We pray that you will look on us this morning and guide our thoughts and our minds as we go about the business of Pitt County. Bless the board members, our staff, and all the citizens thereof. In Jesus' holy name I pray, amen.
Face the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, the only correction on the agenda, it's really not to the agenda, but to an item on the agenda. On the items for consent number 1, the item is good and correct as put on the agenda, but there is a resolution that goes with it that's been put in front of you with the highlighted language on it.
We so note.
I move to approve of the agenda as
All right, let's vote.
corrected.
All right. I believe next is the public address to the board. Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir. We have one person signed up, Brenda Harris. If she'll come forward, please.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Harris.
My address is on file. I came today for 2 reasons. Tomorrow is a big day with Pitt County on the primary. It's election time. My message is not just to you, but to every citizen within the sound of my voice, that it's time that we stand up for what we believe in. I come to public address not because I think you're going to listen, but I come because it's the integrity of the opportunity that we must, as citizens, exercise if we expect to have a democratic nation and a voting right, even in Pitt County. The second reason I'm here is today you decide that you're going to reappoint the tax collector, Ms. Kathy Booker. You need to know that when I come before you, I've already got the data, the files, and everything else that we can handle and send to the federal people. But it takes case after case to ever get the compliance agreements to understand that we're not in compliance in North Carolina. So our goal is a task force that goes above North Carolina that actually can intervene in state and federal court. Because I'll tell you about a story today. It was a bad loan. In July of 1991, you passed the ordinances. Unfortunately, when people do things in terms of building, they get away with a lot because it's not the rules that we have on the books, it's how we choose to enforce them. And that's where Pitt County goes wrong almost on every situation. When you're looking at your social services, it's how your integrity program works. LEPs don't have any. So you're in severe violation under the USDA as well as the Medicaid. But the case that I remind you, I'm going to send you certified mail. I'm going to give you about 10 days to look it over and decide if you're going to set a meeting. Because each time I come, I give you an opportunity to step up to the plate and say, yep, we really do need to hear this. Kathy Booker, bless her heart, she's been unequal in tax collections and in values, and who she comes after and targets for foreclosure over and over again. I should know because I'm one of her victims. But you know what? Thank the Lord that I'm a fighter. Back in 1996, I was a victim of domestic violence. There was arson, sugar in my gas tank, my life threatened, and God knows how much more. But by the grace of God, I survived it. And then every time I come before you, I say, listen, people, there's a better way. And never one time do you set up and you say, let's have that meeting. Never one time. But there's coming an audit, people. There's coming an audit of the hospital because $171 million a year shouldn't be called charity when it's bad debt, bad billing, free to the wealthy, and charity altogether. Charity runs about 2.5 to 3%, guys. When you look at what we're doing as a county, you have to understand that the vote that we have tomorrow is a vote for the confidence in
Thank you, Ms.
government.
Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Owens.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yours is certified mail, too.
No, I'll try to respond properly. All right, Mr. Manager, I believe you're next.
Yes, sir. Items to report, just one thing, your next meeting dates. Actually, your budget workshops will begin Wednesday, May the 8th, here in your meeting room, will be televised. Be May the 8th, 7th and May the 8th, Wednesday and Thursday, and then also the following Monday and Tuesday, if and as needed. Your next regular meeting will then be May 19th at 6 p.m. and then June 2nd at 9 a.m. You may want to note, I believe on June 10th is the proposed date for the public hearing on the budget, even though that's not written down there. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Next.
Next, you have a report from the Department of Social Services. This is kind of a follow-up report to some concerns about the local appropriation. Those dollars are accounted for. I've asked our interim DSS director, Mr. Earl Merritt, and then their finance officer, PJ Quinn, to address the board on this.
Come around. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. I apologize to you. I'm a little drunk today. Have been for the last week. I have vertigo, and I've been kind of sick and under the weather. I know you cannot read this, but I gave you in front of you a paper copy of this current fiscal year 2013-2014 budget distribution of federal, state, and county dollars. And I went back and looked at the emails and stuff that
Pull
came.
the mic back around
So you can hear me? I'm sorry.
Thank you, ma'am.
I went back and looked at the email that was sent that where the first $5.1 million that we didn't account for came to light. And I would like to tell you that what I had done at that point in time is I'd sent a letter to one of the commissioners trying to explain the cost allocation process of the Department of Social Services, and I only used a few examples. I didn't use the whole program, and so I apologize for the confusion. But if you can look at the chart that you have in front of you, you can see that every dollar is accounted for, and behind your chart is the mandated programs that come to us from the state. And this one was from February 2013, which was the one for fiscal year 2013-2014. And under where it says program cost references on the spreadsheet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as it goes down the list, I've cross-referenced it on this sheet, and out in the margins you can see the number, so you can sort of kind of cross-reference the program if you would like. I actually have it up here, but it took 11, if I can get it to go, it took 11 pages to put it up front. I tried to put it in order for you so you didn't have to peck and hunt, but it may be better to just try to use the paper because they're not in the same order on this list as they are on the spreadsheet. But the first ones that you see under the programmatic, all of these are mandated programs. Programmatic are services that we actually provide to the citizens through like food and nutrition or crisis intervention, not food and nutrition, that too, the employment training, the crisis intervention, the payments that go to the vendors and that kind of thing. And that's what each one of these on the programmatic is. And as you can see, the number one on your spreadsheet is Home and Community Care Block Grant. And if you look at your sheet that shows the mandated programs, the third one down on page 1 is the Home and Community Care Block Grant and Home Aid Services. These sheets, pages 1 through 3, show the mandated programs, and 4 and 5 are the optional programs that the state also sometimes supplies funding for, but we don't have any of those funds in Pitt County at this time. And that's how this thing runs all the way down. The administration costs, when you come down to that, the next section, is not something that we purchase. This is really the the cost to provide the service, for instance, adult protective services, all of the things that go into protecting the adults. And that's number 10 on your mandated program, which is number 1 on your list. And as you can see, we get federal dollars, state dollars, and county dollars. And basically, the cost for this that's shown here is the actual, mostly it's the running of the DSS, the staff cost for each one of these things. And if you go down each program, you will see that that's the way it was. And our mandated programs, and I have to apologize to Mr. Colson, because when I sent the letter, the first letter I sent to you, Mr. Colson, I indicated that Pitt County did not run any non-mandated services. After researching it a little further, I discovered that the Community Alternative Program, which is what we refer to in the Department of Social Services as CAP-DA, is not a mandated service. It is a Medicaid service that keeps citizens of Pitt County in their home instead of a nursing home. But as you can see, if you look down under non-mandated programs, $237,000 of that cost comes from the federal government, and $64,000 comes from the county dollars. And then we also have Smart Start funding, which is not a mandated program. Smart Start is a child daycare program that pays for 0 to 5, children to have daycare from 0 to 5. And the little bit of county cost in that actually, again, goes back to salaries to help to run the program itself. So we do have 2 programs at a cost to the county of $103,173 in non-mandated programs. We also get revenue that's it's miscellaneous revenue. It's not assigned to a specific program. For instance, the revenue that we get back for paying the insurance for retirees for the Department of Social Services, Vidant Hospital, Bernstein, and the college. East Carolina provides us some funding each year because we provide them with some staff, and so that's not assigned to a specific program per se in the budget template. And that's what that $694,000 of revenue that reduces the county cost. And then we have our indirect cost plan, which is done by an outside agent, someone that the county hires to come in and do the indirect cost plan. And this $2,162,833 is an amount of money for the cost of running the whole Pitt County that's allocated to the Department of Social Services that I can put on the report that goes to Raleigh, and they reimburse us based on that. And so when all of that is entered into this budget template that I have that comes up, the county dollar that we require to run fiscal year 2013-2014 is $8,789,969. And if you've got any questions about this, I'd really like to try to answer them, but I wanted to make sure that you left here with the understanding that we do account for every dollar.
Thank you, ma'am. This, as your agenda indicates, is for information, but if there's any member of the board's got a question, please feel free to do so. Ms. James?
One of the most, I think, important questions is mandated.
Yes,
What is
sir.
mandated? All right, I see here that you, of course, federal is $20,073,000, state $3,800,000, and then, of course, you got your county. The total was $35,418,000. Out of that amount, you said there were 2 of them. I believe that was not mandated.
It's further down, sir. All of that $20 million
All
is
right,
mandated.
how much total money? And we'll get asked this question a lot of times. How much of the total amount of your budget is not being mandated by the federal or state government?
The county dollar is $103,173.
So that's the total amount that's not being mandated,
Yes, sir, of county dollars, yes, sir.
county dollars.
All the other programs we run are mandated, and that's shown on this list.
All right, now, the thing that I'm concerned with, we were talking about going to Pitt Community College to train some of our personnel so that they could do the crossover work and do it much quicker, get more productivity from our workers. That, if we use that program, will that will not be mandated funds, will it?
The program itself with Pitt Community College will not be.
That's what I
But
thought.
what they're training for will be, because they'll be training to come in here as a Medicaid worker, a food stamp worker, food nutrition worker, that type of thing.
So what I want everybody to realize is that even though that's not mandated, we're hoping to get big returns from our employees as they do their job.
Yes, sir.
All right, and Mr. Colson might have might have a question further than what I have asked pertaining to this. Do you?
So, since you used number 10 as an example.
Yes,
that's
sir.
the first one on the next sheet. If I go into this, and I will, General Statute 108A, Article 6, yada, yada, yada. It's going to tell me that that there is somewhere in there a formulation that we, the county of Pitt, have got to put up $142,208, and yet the state and the federal only put up about $100,000. That's what I'm gonna find, right? There's gonna be a percentage that says that we, the county, absolutely are required to pay that amount of money. Now, you've got an allocation here, but what I have been asking for is what mandates, the program may be mandated, but what mandates the county to appropriate, in this particular instance, a la the rest of them, $142,208.
It is mandated that the county provide 25% of funding in this particular program. The county dollar is also predicated on the fact that at the level of service that you want to provide to the citizens of Pitt County. And in this case, the $30,000, I don't know if that's 25% or not, but if in fact every program that has a capped
Where'd you get
allocation.
30,000? We're talking about number 10.
Oh, adult, excuse me, I'm number 10. I told you, as I said earlier today, I'm drunk.
I mean, I'll go up there and we can talk about that. if you
Right,
want.
and we have, it's mandated that we provide 25% of this cost for
Okay,
that particular program.
25% of the federal, 25% of the state, or both?
25% of the cost, and in Pitt County, the
And yet
cost
we're
for,
putting up more, what is it,
Talk
about
about it.
60%, 70%,
The
65%?
funding source for this program is the Social Services Block Grant. That block grant has decreased over a period of time. It is a 75-25 match, but
Our
to
part
provide
being
that,
what?
it does not say in the statute that you have to spend X amount of money, but it says that you have to provide the service and to protect adults. And this amount of money has grown over a period of years, whereas the federal funding has decreased over a period of years. So it's no longer 75-25.
and that's the way it is, with every program that we have. There is a funding match for federal and state and county dollars. But to say, okay, you gotta spend $1 million in a particular program, it does not say that anywhere in any statute. It says you gotta provide this service.
Can I interrupt?
Yes, sir, please do.
Aren't there court cases, Alexander versus Flaherty, that require DSS agencies to maintain certain staff levels in terms of meeting caseloads as part of what drives the local, state, and federal appropriation?
That particular statute was for food and nutrition services and for Medicaid services, and when you took an application and how long you had to process that application.
But you're audited on Alexander Flaherty, plus there are other court case standards that you are periodically audited by the state, correct?
Yes, sir, and they send representatives from the state government down to look at different programs and see if we're meeting the
And if you're out of
guidelines.
if the county's out of compliance, what is the result, I guess?
Well, more importantly, in adult protective services, disabled adults will be abused and neglected and taken advantage of, and we get calls about that on a daily basis and reports for that.
we could also be fined or have to pay back all the federal and state dollars that they have originally give us. And it could go all the way back to whenever the error happened, when it started. So, luckily that hasn't happened to my knowledge in quite a few years, but it could be.
Well, stay on that same item, adult protective services. And what you're suggesting to me, if I'm hearing you right, is that in the past, the $142,000 that we're now giving would have been only 25% of the total state and federal dollars?
No, sir. It is
Do
20.
you see my confusion?
Yeah. Well,
It has started out at 75-25 and it's gone in the other direction.
Yeah, now it's us,
Yeah,
65%, and the state and the federal combined about a third.
That's right. And when the,
But the thing is, you've allocated it and are spending 142,000 in that. But there's nothing that I'm gonna be able to see that says that we, the county, have to pay that. That's what you're telling me. And at the same time,
that's right.
you're asking for 12 new positions immediately, of which we didn't give you, and 31 total next year. How's that gonna impact these numbers?
We have not asked for any increases in that particular program. The programs
Well, that particular program, but overall, you're asking for 12 new positions and 31 next year, 12 now and 31 next year. I have been told that the cost of that's only gonna be 25% to the county. But what you're telling me is that over time, these programs go from the 75-25 in the other direction. Will that 31 new positions 5 years from now be almost all the county's burden?
No, sir.
How do you know that?
Well, I can't guarantee anything the federal government will do.
I don't mean to be argumentative. I'm just looking at this from a standpoint, I'm just a simple manager, and when I look at things, they just don't add up and make sense to me.
I understand that, but we're dealing with 3 different levels of government. We deal with the federal level, the state level, and the local level. And our requirements come from the federal level and the state level. Funding does not always accompany them, but we are required to provide those services. Not just because of that, but in the sense of adult protective services or food and nutrition services or Medicaid services. I think it's our ethical responsibility to do that as well.
So what you're saying is that 142,000, a big portion of it is an unfunded mandate? Is that what you're saying?
I think that's fair to say.
I'd
And the
like-
rest of them would kind of fall in that same category where I'd be confused?
I'd like to say one thing, and that is that your example a while ago, the 31 positions, you ask in 5 years, or whatever, could it be, the county be more than the 50% that's in there, or it's 25%? The answer to that is no, because that is not a capped pot of money coming to the Department of Social Services. Whatever we spend in the Medicaid arena that they process through the new NC Fast system will be reimbursed at 75%, unless the federal government changes the law somewhere down the road.
They would never do that.
No, they would never do that, because they never have. But, and if they do food stamp work, it will be 50% reimbursed from now on until, if the law would ever be changed. And I've worked in the Department of Social Services for almost 20 years now, and food stamps has been 50% all of those years. Just this year, March of this year, 2013, they did change Medicaid to 75% reimbursement, which was 50% at the time, but if you do it through NC Fast. But what the problem is, when you see these large county dollars that are, even though, we'll use number 10 as an example, even though it's a 25% reimbursement as far as the state is concerned, it is, it's a capped pot. They're only gonna give you, us, the 50, 100,000, whatever that adds up to, minus the 142, the 50, $151,000. That's what they're gonna give us. and they're not gonna give us any more. But it takes us a little more than that, more than the 25% to actually provide the service. And that's why the county dollar is higher in cap pots. If you look at child welfare, Child Protective Services number 6 down here, you can see, Child Protective Services, number 17, I'm sorry. Again, my drunkenness got me. You can see that there's a lot of dollars goes into the county pot to protect the children. That's because all of the pots of money that we have to provide child welfare services are capped, and we're only gonna get that much money, but you cannot protect the children within Pitt County with that amount of money, the 25%
So
of Woodford
this,
County.
that one would not be a case of an unfunded mandate. That would be, in my opinion, more of an internal, local decision as to what you needed to spend in order to be able to provide that service.
I need to also make sure you understand that I cannot take a food stamp worker, let's use that as an example, food and nutrition worker, and use that food and nutrition worker to provide child protective services. We cannot do that. Therefore, we can't use any of the funding. The
Why
funding
can't
is
you do that?
specific to services
Why can't you do that?
because the law won't allow it, because what they have to do, tell them, you can explain to them what the child welfare, it's different requirements.
The funding is strictly for child welfare services. If you took that individual and used them to determine eligibility, then you would have to switch over to another pot of money and have to do the 50-50 match or the 75-25 match.
So we're very careful to make sure that our workers, that how they're budgeted, that's how they charge their time during the year, so that we get all of this money. Is every dollar, every federal dollar, every state dollar that's available to bring down into the Department of Social Services every year, we bring down.
So essentially, what you're saying is that between the state and the federal government, they have made this an extremely complex and confusing mix.
I'm going to say something I probably shouldn't say because it's not politically correct, but the fact of the matter is, the state's in the same boat as the county and the feds, is pushed down to the bottom level, and we, at the county level, is where the rubber meets the road, and you got to provide the services. You got to provide the services, and so somebody has to pay for it, and it gets shoved down to the county.
I'll be leaving this meeting with a lot better understanding, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else got any questions at this time? I believe this was brought back as Mr. Causon's request for some additional information. And with that being presented to him, maybe issues in our mind can be worked with, and we appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Manager.
I don't know what to
Okay, next we have Noel Lee's going to give an update and report regarding the impacts of severe weather in Pitt County, that primarily being the tornadoes and storm damage, as well as a report on the train derailment from last week.
Okay. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, our office has been a little bit busy since April 25th. We never know when something's going to happen, and we go from being sort of calm to everything being sort of hectic. I'm going to just give you a brief, and then if you got any questions, by all means, I'll try to answer them. On April the 25th, we had two distinct storms pass through the county. First one was in the western part of the county, and as it moved through, there was a lot of heavy rains, hail, and a lot of report of funnel cloud sightings. But we did not have any touchdowns. The second storm passed through on the southern portion of the county. And around about 7 o'clock on the 25th, I actually had a report of a touchdown in the Blackjack area, Blackjack Simpson, Stokestown, St. John's Road area. After Blackjack arrived on the scene and had assessed it, they called in a lot of different agencies. I'm going to try to give you a few of them. I always hate starting to mention agencies because I'm afraid I will miss one, but just to give you a little bit. Eastern Pine, Blackjack Fire Department, Eastern Pines EMS, Pitt County Emergency Management, Red Cross, North Carolina EM, Pitt County Sheriff's Office, North Carolina DOT, National Weather, and North Carolina State Highway Patrol, plus a local gas company. What was found, there were 3 homes that were totally destroyed there in that area, plus a farming operation received a lot of heavy damage. So from that, we went to work to see what could we do. Very first thing that we were concerned with was, number one, what can we do for those families? Red Cross was called in, and they provided assistance to those families to try to help out with them. Did have a gas leak from one of the LP tanks, so that's where the gas company come in. There was nothing could be done. The valves actually sheared out of the tank, so basically they stood by and let the actual vapors disperse. EMS stood by, but one of the residents, while trying to recover some of his property, stuck a nail in his hand, and he was treated, but not seriously. Again, Red Cross provided assistance to the family. Pitt County Sheriff's Office provided security that night, and then the next day actually provided security at the roadblock, trying to keep people out of that area. During that night, State Highway Patrol actually helped with the traffic control. Our office provided assistance to the first responders, families, and notification, and on the next morning, damage was reported in North Carolina EM Saturday morning with a follow-up on Monday morning, just trying to see the damage that we had, did we meet the criteria for any type of response from them. On Tuesday morning, North Carolina EM stated to us we had not received enough damage to meet the criteria for filing anything. They advised that the farmer that has farming operation, that there could be some assistance through the USDA, and suggested that he contact the Extension office. From that time, farmer has been told that, and he has actually made contact with Mitch Smith. On Saturday morning, the insurance teams, for the individuals that did have the insurance, they were on scene working with the families. And then National Weather was also there, trying to determine what they saw on radar, what they saw on the ground, was it correct, and what can they do to help. Friday, May 2nd, Governor McCrory requested the President declare a federal declaration for 4 counties, being Beaufort, Chowan, Pasquotank, and Perquimans counties. If that is given, the adjacent counties will also be eligible to apply for federal low-interest disaster loans or grants to help them repair their homes, pay medical costs, rebuild their business, begin a long recovery process. So that was a storm on the 25th. On the 29th, again, we had a lot of heavy rain, especially in the Farmville area, caused several roads in Farmville to be closed. I think at one time, 258 was the only way that you could get out of Farmville. That water receded off the roadways. Farmville did have some residents in an area that had to be evacuated. Actually, some of the water came in the house, and we did work with Red Cross to provide assistance to those families in shelter that night. On April 30th, early in the morning, get a call. There's a request from Greenville Fire and Rescue needing the Regional Hazardous Materials Response Team to come out of Williamston for a train derailment. I think all of you realize that was between Charles Boulevard and Evans Street. There were 2 engines that were actually derailed. I think 5 cars did have product release. There was product, thank goodness, it was a farm chemical that is used in manufacturing fertilizer, so it did not pose a large risk, only environmental. So from that point, state hazmat team was called in. There was not anything they could do because of where the leak was at, so it was pretty much there. One of the things that did help, we had that heavy rain, which the product was able to mix, again, part of the actual cleanup. But again, that was a large issue. There were no evacuations due to the fact that they were told and provided information that it was not hazardous to humans at that time. Why were we called into that? That's part of our job through the state. If any type of regional hazmat or state resource is requested, it has to come through our office. So we did provide that, and we stayed on the scene with them during that. That whole operation went through 2 operational periods, and CSX, or the rail company, actually took the lead as far as cleanup and everything that was there. There were a lot of roads that were already closed overnight due to the rainfall, so that helped out with traffic. And then as the roads opened up because of the location of the incident, that was good. Red Cross was called and notified along with ECU because of the proximity. There was not a need for Red Cross, but they were advised and kept up with that. Water samples, or samples, I say water samples because it was taken out of the water, but samples were taken to find out what type of environmental impact. Have not yet got the results back, but as soon as they are, they will be sent out to the people of need of knowing. So some of the agencies that responded to the train derailment was Greenville PD. Greenville PD was the first to notify that. They actually started what's called an NRC, National Response Center report. And once that report is filed, it opens up the doors to many different agencies being notified to respond. Our office, North Carolina EM, EPA, Greenville Fire and Rescue, the Regional Response Team, Greenville Public Works, and North Carolina DENR, the Water Quality Division. This incident started around 3:30 on April 30th and went through, again, like I said, 2 operational periods. Railroad companies did have it open back up, but have not checked back, but they did have 2 rail cars that were still in that proximity trying to get them pumped off. Many different agencies come together to work on all of these 3 incidents. And it's good to see how all of them come together to work for that common goal, and it's to provide the safety to the citizens. So, Mr. Chairman, that's a very brief description, but I'll try to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. On behalf of the commissioners and all of the citizens of Pitt County, we are truly thankful that you and the responders are always available in time of emergency, and we are very blessed in this county to have the people to come for our rescue.
Very much blessed,
And we
sir.
thank you. Any questions, Mr. Coles?
Did you have any communication problems up in the Farmville area? I thought about that every time that there was a call as to, because we hadn't really gotten over the hurdle. Was that complicated up there?
I had none reported to me, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and again, that was long. We were on the phone a lot because it was between Red Cross we at first thought we were gonna have to actually open up a shelter, but then the numbers dwindled down to the actual number of people
But the
affected.
radios and stuff, you didn't have that communication problem that you know of?
That was reported to me, no, sir.
wasn't in that era. It's Spamton, Balkland, and
Yeah, it was
all
up
of
there.
them. It was kind of out of that era.
Any other questions? If not, thank you all.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion on the consent of judgment?
So moved. Second.
All right, let's vote. Mr. Rhodes?
Sir. Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We have one item concerning a zoning request today, and that is for a second time extension request for Ramshorn Solar Center LLC. You may recall this was before you about a year ago. The group from Heliosage was here to request a conditional use permit for a solar energy facility known commonly as a solar farm, and this was to be constructed at the intersection of Witchard Road and Ramshorn Road. Since that time, there's been a request, and it was granted in October for a six-month extension for the conditional use permit. With the conditional use permit, certain thresholds have to be met as far as the construction. Those have not been met yet, but they are moving forward with certain other approvals that's included in the letter in your package. Again, to orient you as to where this is located, it is at the intersection of Ramshorn and Witchard Road, and you can see it on a rather large agricultural lot at this point. Staff has reviewed the request and are recommending approval for an additional 6-month extension. And with that, Mr. Chairman, we'll turn it over for your consideration.
Do we have a motion for that approval?
So moved.
Second.
Let's vote. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
May I ask them a question?
Yes, sir.
All right, you know, we approved the one over at Bethel, the solar system there by the wayside. What progress is being made, and, you know, how many people are they employed, and, you know, we talked about that and so forth.
The one near the recycling center is
Yes,
actually
sir.
within the town of Bethel's jurisdiction. It is, as far as I know, the construction's been completed. We handled the inspections of the site, but we did not actually handle the review of the plans as far as zoning and so forth.
How many of these sites are now located in Pitt County?
We have that one in Bethel, and we have 2 others that are currently under consideration / construction at this point.
What happened to the one out by the airport? Is that on hold or where?
Again, that's in the city's jurisdiction. I'm not real sure that.
TJ there, Greenville.
That is correct, so I'm not sure of the status on that one.
I have no further questions, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you. Dwayne? Thank you, James.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Before you in your packet, you'll have a request from Shepherd Memorial Library for the appropriation of one-time funds for maintenance and repairs of the exterior of the main library facility at 530 Evans Street in the city of Greenville. This request came out of meetings. We've been having internal and external meetings on budget, and the library brought this request forward. The estimate has come from Greenville Public Works, and the $31,666 request would amount to 1/3 of the total request for the estimate of repairs. And that 1/3, 2/3 is in keeping with the long-standing arrangement that the county has with the city of Greenville.
Pleasure to board.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept this recommendation.
Any discussion? If not, let's vote. Thank you, Dwayne. Mr. Elliott?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, board members, this next item is a resolution from ECU. It's entitled Resolution Supporting ECU Initiatives for the Brody School of Medicine. In a nutshell, the first whereas really explains the purpose of the resolution. Vice Chairman Webb had asked for this to be added to the agenda. Basically states that ECU is seeking legislation during the 2014 session which will promote the financial sustainability of the Brody School of Medicine by seeking the repeal or amendment of a provision which makes the physician upper pay limit unavailable to the Brody School of Medicine, and the repeal provision which prevents Brody from utilizing provisions of what's called the Set Debt Off Collection Act. There's more other language in this resolution, but that's it in a nutshell. I do know we have Michelle Brooks from the universities here. She had a major hand in drafting the resolution. Mr. Webb, I didn't know if you wanted her to address this, or?
I think everybody knows what it is, and we're in favor of it, I think. Do we have a motion from the board?
Second.
Motion made and second. Mr. James, you want to comment?
Yeah, I'm certainly in favor of it, but I would like to know, maybe you all know a lot more about it than I do. Of course, I know a lot about it, but I would like to hear from them myself. I'd like to know more, so I know what I'm voting on.
You can have lunch with her today and do that. No, come on up, please, ma'am.
No, I think we owe it to her. She's here and taking her time. That's one of the
Thank you.
reasons that I said what I said.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate that. Basically, these two issues, the Set-Off Debt Collection Act is a authority by state organizations to collect debt owed to them through persons who have tax refunds or have lottery winnings. So there's many agencies that use this. This recent legislation really redefined a state agency for the purposes of this SODCA use, and the University School of Medicine, or UNC Healthcare, and Brody School of Medicine were deemed to not be a state organization in terms of being able to use this authority. That's about, well, it was $6.4 million for us in 2013, which is funds that now cannot be recouped. So we're asking that this be repealed in this session.
Now that brings another question. UNC School of Medicine, they are in this just like the Brody School of Medicine.
Yes, sir, it's state-supported medical schools.
And they are not already getting it. Was theirs cut out too, such as yours?
Yes, sir, it would cut that out for both schools.
Ms. Ward?
I think it's a good thing.
I just want to say that this is sort of like everything else, but now UNC Medical School is in it at the same, but we cannot afford to lose this money in the East, and certainly not at Vidant Health and Brody School of Medicine. It's been a battle since the beginning I want to say of time, but it is, we cannot afford it. It will be devastating to this, so we need to do this and even more. So if you know somebody to talk to them. That's
This
all
is
I want
certain-
to say.
Excuse me, Beth.
That's it.
This is certainly what Beth was saying, the time that you need to go to Raleigh with.
Yes.
Everybody here wants to keep what we can here and want to enhance this. One good thing about it is, though, that now we do not have that argumentative coming from up there because they've been cut too, Beth.
Exactly.
So we'll have more input with the General Assembly, we hope.
I hope so too.
Anybody else? Thank you, ma'am. Didn't mean to cut you out. How about the tax collector?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a request on the agenda to reappoint our tax collector. This would be Kathy Booker. Ms. Booker has been with us for a good while now. Her term as tax collector expires on July 12th, or actually July of 2014, and she is requesting a 4-year reappointment.
Do we have a motion?
I so move,
I
Mr. Chairman.
second it.
All right, in discussion? Not, let's vote. Thank you. Next one, Scott.
Next one is appointments of the animal cruelty investigators for Pitt County. You've got a list of names there that are being submitted to you. William Surgenson, the Michelle Whaley, Fred Wade, William Christopher Arnold, Johnny Barnhill, and David Shane Phillips.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to reappoint.
Let's vote. All right, Madam Attorney, I believe we've got a matter that you need to address for us.
Yes, it's been suggested that this board go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A4 and A1. First, to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by this public body, and under subsection 1, to prevent the disclosure of information that is otherwise privileged or confidential.
Do we have a motion?
I say move.
Second.
Let's vote. Thank y'all. If you'll excuse us, we'll be back with you momentarily. What's the pleasure of the board at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the minutes from our April 7th, 2014 closed session for the content only.
Ready to vote? We, commissioners' comments, Mr. Garris?
No comment.
Just want to remind the citizens to vote tomorrow. Thank you.
Dr. Johnson?
No additional comments, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Webb?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Woolwood?
None, thank you.
No comment.
I want to remind them to vote.
All right. Reverend?
Same.
All right.
They ain't already voted.
Yeah.
All right, we stand adjourned then.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
I noticed the paper's reporting that, Mary.